From setback to comeback, we claim our space. Black women rising, strength you can't erase. Every voice matters, every dream has a place. Where we're writing the rules and taking up space. Beyond the layoff, we are rising, breaking barriers, claiming our throne, redefining what's possible. The future is ours, we're taking control. Beyond the layoff, black women rising.
What's up, everybody? What's up? Welcome to Beyond the Layoff, Black Women Rising. I am your host, Kelly Charles Collins. Listen, y'all, I'm so excited. So excited about this. Wait, I got to clean my camera because I didn't do that before because I had to make sure that y'all don't miss anything and you see it all clearly. All right, so we can see everything clearly. So welcome to our first episode of Black Women Rising, Beyond the Layoff, Black Women Rising. This is an episode. This is a mini series on my podcast, and it is the mission of it is to amplify, affirm, and elevate the voices of Black women who have been impacted by all of these layoffs. We know that over 300,000, I think getting close to 400,000 Black women have been displaced from the workforce since the beginning of this year. And that is devastating, right? And whether we're in corporate spaces or in entrepreneurship, it really has had an impact. And so this series is my way of giving voice to that issue and helping these amazing, brilliant women to share who they are, and in hopes that whether they're going back to corporate or they're going into entrepreneurship, that we can help uplift them and really help them to get back and take control of their lives. And so, yeah, this is what we're doing today. So today we have our first guest, which I'm so excited for you to meet her. Her name is Michan Winborn, and she's going to come on now, and we're just going to chat it up and keep looking out for the series. We already have some guests already booked. So in the next couple of weeks, you'll see. And if you want to be featured on Beyond the Layoff, Black Women Rising, all you got to do is DM me, comment below the video, wherever you're watching this, and let me know if you know somebody who should be on the series. Let me know. But for now, let's jump on in, and I'm going to invite in my guest, Michan. Hey, girl.
Kelly, that song was fire. Seriously, I need you to send me that song. It was so good. Wow. It was great.
Well, thank you. So, Michan, I'm so excited that you are here. And I want to say this first. I'm going to have Michan introduce herself, but I want to tell you all that the reason that we're even doing this series is because I had a conversation with Michan. And as I was speaking to her, I was like, wait, you just gave me an idea. And this was the idea. This was, when did we speak? Last week?
Yeah, it was literally a week ago. Last Monday.
We had this conversation last week, and here we are today because we got to get moving on this, right? This whole idea, what's happening in the world with Black women and being displaced from the workplace. And when we say workplace, it's interesting because it's not just from corporate spaces. We know a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the DEI space, Black women in that space have been displaced. So before we get any further, Michan, introduce yourself to the people, please.
My pleasure. Hello, people. My name is Michan Winborn. I'm a woman. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a follower of Jesus. I am now an entrepreneur. I'm a former corporate baddie turned corporate turned entrepreneur. And I currently own a business called Born2Win Coaching. And we can get into that a little bit later, but that's who I am. I'm an actor, I'm a singer, I do a lot of
She's
stuff.
an all-around baddie.
I do. Thank you.
She's an all-around baddie. So, Michaun, let's talk about this because the reason we were having a conversation related to your entrepreneurial ventures. However, you started talking to me and saying that, and I did not know this before we got on the conversation,
Yeah.
that you were one of these 300,000. We just all of a sudden got into talking about that, and
Yeah.
you mentioned that. And as soon as you mentioned that, this idea came to me. And it came to me because in the past couple of weeks, especially, I had been seeing a lot of posts on LinkedIn about, women, men, everybody, right, being displaced. But I I always share, like I'll share those on my feed, right? Hey, can anybody help? But as I was speaking with you, it made me realize that though that's great, right? The commenting for reach and sharing.
Mhm.
What's missing though is this human connection where people can actually get to hear, right, who
Yeah.
you are and how this has really impacted you and what is the support that could move you forward. So let's back up before we move forward and let's talk about who you were and what you did before you came into entrepreneurship.
Sure. So I've had a few different careers. I'm older than I look. But my last stint was at JP Morgan Chase. I was in the diversity, opportunity, and inclusion organization. Um, the way they have that organized is a little bit different than most companies. They have like a firm wide, which is a little bit more public facing, DEI or DOI organization. And then they have the DOI teams that sit in the lines of business. So I was on one of the teams that sat in a business. I was in consumer and community banking, which is about 140,000 employees. And I was on a diversity team of 4. Was one of the VPs on the team, and my work was data insights and accountability. So I was the person that people would go to dig into their diversity numbers, understand why attrition is happening for certain populations and not others, understanding if their recruiting strategies were working appropriately, understanding if they had, a balanced or equitable representation across different markets that they sat in. Like if you sit in Arizona, your business is in Arizona, but you have like no Hispanic or indigenous people in your business, you're probably not doing a good job of recruiting the people that actually live in that city, right? So just thinking about things like that. That was my job. I was doing that. I did it in the firm-wide team for a year, and then I came to the line of business and was on that team for 3 years. So, yeah, I did that. I did facilitating inclusion sessions, different sessions on like autism inclusion, LGBTQ plus awareness, all kinds of things. But that was my job, and they eliminated my role.
Hold on for 1 second. I want to do something because I listened to you and
Yeah.
I hear you say, "Oh, I was on a team. I was part of a
Oh,
team." And then you said VP to no, you weren't just on a team,
yeah.
ma'am. You were a vice president,
Yes, I was.
right?
I
The
was.
reason
Yeah.
the reason I stop you there is because we do this often, right? Especially as Black women, we kind of minimize, right? We kind of just like throw it away. Oh, as a VP. No, girl, like say it with your whole chest, right? Your whole chest. We got to take up space, and especially as we're moving it through these transitions, this is not a time for us to
Shrink.
diminish, right? Or to shrink
Yeah.
because it's a lot of us out there trying to figure out where we're going next, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's really important to like say with your whole chest
I
that
agree.
this is who you are and who you were.
Yeah.
And so you were just going to talk about that you were laid off. So talk about like how that happened. How did you find out? Like talk about that whole context of that.
So I okay, so I was pretty aware that this was coming.
Mhm.
I didn't know how or when, but I saw the winds changing. I saw the world, the United States. I saw through the election and the result of the election. And my former boss, had already moved on by the time we were actually laid off. He had moved on to something else, and I love him dearly. But we had conversations too, like, hey, let's figure out what we want to do next, because this is probably not going to last much longer. And so I would say about a year and a half prior to me actually being laid off, I knew that it was going to come eventually. So I had it in the back of my head. So, I'm updating my resume. I'm, continuing to network, because I always network. There was someone that I worked very closely with who had a role that I wanted. And I knew that he was going to be leaving to start his own job, or his own company, which he did. And so, I made sure that I was very clear with him. Hey, I want your job. When you leave, like, this is my job. He's like, yeah, say less. You're absolutely right. You could totally do this job. I'm going to set you up. I'm going to make sure I'm talking to the right people so that they know that this is your next step. I'm going to build you into my succession plan, all the things. So, and he held to his word. He did those things. But when he left, which was probably, actually, it's almost coming up on a year. It was October of last year. He left the firm. He had done what he said that he would do, and they decided to eliminate his role instead of, continuing it and giving it to me or whoever else they deemed was a fit for it. They just decided not to have the role anymore. And essentially the role is what I'm doing in my business. So just to clarify. Okay. And so I said, okay, well, that sucks, but I will move on. And so then, of course, the election happened right after that, then the top of the year. And then around February of this year, 2025, parts of my job started getting taken away. So remember, I am the VP, Data Insights and Accountability for DOI, at JP Morgan Chase for consumer and community banking, and data got taken away. So I could no longer report. Then there were other things slowly over the next few months that essentially by April, I had my actual job, the job that I was being paid to do, I was no longer doing. And it was all, there was lots of, well, I won't say that. There was communication about, hey, we're taking this away, but we are centralizing it and standardizing it so that all of the businesses are doing this the same way across the board. Okay, sure. So again, I had nothing to do for the most part. But of course, I made something for myself to do, because I'm not that kind of person to just be like, well, you took my job away, but you're still paying me, so I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. That's just not me. Which, listen, if that's you, do you. Because I know people that is them, that they would just be like, well, fine, I'll just sit here. But that wasn't me. So I essentially started doing what my old peer, which I was telling you about, who left in October, what he had been doing, facilitating workshops, going to different leaders' offsites and facilitating, 1 or 2 hour sessions for them on developing professional vulnerability, or navigating team dynamics, branding yourself, all these different topics that I had kind of just created collateral around. My former peer had created collateral around. I was just like, well, I'll just do that. And that was going very well. And then I was told that I couldn't travel anymore. And that was about top of May. And so, I had a conversation with my boss at the time, like, hey, I feel like I have been let go, but I haven't been let go. So I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing, because I don't have any work and I can't travel. And so I've had to cancel sessions for leaders. Some of them I can do virtually, but a lot of these senior leaders, they want somebody in the room with their 200 employees that they're doing this offsite for. They don't want to Zoom me in for that meeting, right? So they're like, oh, it's fine. You don't need to do it. So anyway, I didn't get a lot of clarity
Mhm.
around what I should be doing. And end of May, my boss's boss actually messaged me at the beginning of work and said, "Hey, can you find a small sitting room, off the floor, so we need to have a chat." And I was told that my role had been eliminated.
Yeah.
That's the
And
truth.
what was your response?
Yeah, my response was, yeah, I knew this was coming. I literally said I knew this was coming. I don't know how much my boss at the time had. I asked essentially my boss's boss. I said, "I'm not sure how much my boss has told you about our conversations, but I am extremely candid with her." I said, "So I knew that this was coming, and I so what happens next? Like, do you send me paperwork? What does this look like?" And so the way that this particular um, role elimination worked is we were allotted 45 days essentially to find another role internally. And so I, was taking those 45 days to do that, applying for things internally, continuing to network with people, find out if there were any potential roles coming open anytime soon. And nothing was panning out. And so the day after I was let go, I actually just registered my business with the state and started working on that, along with still applying internally. But I had a feeling that nothing would really pan out because I didn't think that that was the plan that I don't think that was the way I was supposed to go, to be honest. Like I felt, and I still feel very strongly that God was like, that's your exit.
Exit. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's so funny listening to you because as I was listening to you, I was like, oh my, that was how that's how I got fired, right? From the law firm. In that I now, unlike you were trying to stay, right? You were trying to stay. And I
yeah,
think as people listen, as other Black women and other women who lost their roles, right, listen to this and start to see and start to pay attention, because one of the things that you said is like, I saw it, like I could feel it. And sometimes we see the writing on the wall, but we don't want to pay attention. And for
yeah,
me, that's what was happening when I started deciding that I wanted to leave and I started doing things. They started doing the same things, like taking away my work. They started ostracizing me. They started,
mhm,
making sure that I was not a part of decisions. I would hear the decisions afterwards, decisions that they would consult me with beforehand.
yeah,
And I started to watch, right, all of those things. And then, I was fired, right, because they said they couldn't afford to pay me, but whatever. Right. But I think, you know, those are the things that we need to start paying attention to.
mhm,
It doesn't make it easier, but it can help you to kind of prepare. And so you
absolutely,
mentioned something, and we're going to talk about what you're doing now. But you talked about how that role that you wanted, that has now become what your business is. And so before I get there, I want to ask you something about like how this all felt, but I do want to talk about how our skills in
mhm,
our roles really prepare us for what's next. But before we get there, talk about that feeling, though you saw it coming, right? And though you knew that this was going to happen, the feeling of being a vice president in this business and then just one day no longer there and now having to go figure it out. Like, what is, because I
yeah,
know that this takes a physical and emotional toll on people. And I know that there's so
mhm,
many of us who are, and so many Black women now who are grappling with
yeah.
this whole idea and the feeling. So talk about that, Michelle.
Yeah, I think to the point that I made earlier and what you just reiterated, because I knew a while ago that this was potentially coming. First of all, let me back up a step.
Mhm.
I have to really appreciate my former boss. Again, he left in March of this year, so before we got laid off. But I do have to appreciate him because he is, and if you want to know who it is, you can message me because he's amazing. But I don't want to blast him on here because
Yeah,
I
no,
don't.
no, do that.
But I do have to appreciate him because he always kept it very, very real with me. And although he was my manager, he treated me more like a peer.
Mm.
And so he gave me a lot of insight into meetings that he was having that, the rest of the team would never have been invited to, and that's fine. But he would give me insight into those meetings. So he would meet with people above him and then tell me, hey, this is what's going on. I'm seeing this. I think there's going to be a gap here. Let's start thinking about. So I was learning how to be strategic and how to think beyond my role because he always included me in his thought process, in the thought process of the leaders he was listening to. That was extremely helpful. So through that inclusion, really, and through us having conversations just about the world and how things were going in general, because I knew early, I was able to grieve early, get that out of my system before it actually hit. Because when it hit, I was mad. I knew it was coming, but I was still mad. Like, really? And I think it wasn't even necessarily being mad about losing my position. It was seeing that the roles that I was applying to internally, I couldn't even get interviews for some of them. I would have a screening interview. I'm thinking, I've been doing, listen, I have not been.
I'm a vice president in this place.
I have not been in the DEI space for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I get it. But the DOI organization at JP Morgan Chase is like 6 years old. 5 years old. I think I'm exaggerating. It's like 5 years old. And I started on one of the original teams on the firm-wide team for diversity. So I'd seen the firm-wide version of DEI and did work for that. Then I came to a business, the largest business in the company, and did DEI for that. And I couldn't even get an interview for other diversity roles in the firm at my same level. So that is what made me angry, because it wasn't that I deserved to be in these positions. It wasn't even that. It was just, hello.
Right.
I'm literally doing this work. And I actually care about this work. And I can't even get a first interview. And these are hiring managers that I know, that I've worked with over the past 4 years. So it didn't feel right, and it didn't sit right. And so that made me angry. But the whole being upset or the angst that you feel, or the loss that you feel when you are let go from a role, whether it's your passion or not, that I grieved months, almost a year prior, where I knew that it was coming. And so I let go of this position is Michaun. I let that go months prior. So one of the things that and there was some other person I was talking to about this fairly recently. One of the things that I really want to make sure that women, Black women specifically, but anybody that's laid off understands, your job is not you.
Yes.
Like, you have to figure out what your purpose is, and you might be able to infuse that into the job that you are hired to do, and that's wonderful. But if you're not, your purpose is still yours and doesn't necessarily have to be tied to where you work. And if you're able to continually remind yourself of that, you'll be much better off just in general, because you won't buy into this corporate burnout that people go through. You won't buy into not taking your PTO.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll actually have more work-life balance when you actually remember that you are not here for that company. You are here for the purpose that God put in you.
That's right.
And whatever that purpose is, figure that out, walk in that, no matter where you work. And then you will be fulfilled. You'll be sustained. You'll be, you'll be able to rest. You'll be able to take the time and, find where your meaning is, whether it's again in your job or starting your own business or finding another job or doing something without the title, but it's part of your purpose.
Yeah. And I love that you say all that, because when I was in the process, right, when I realized what they were doing, I started really, I was already planning, right? But
Yeah.
then it just made me really more intentional about planning. And they didn't like what I was doing, and they were trying to put me out, right? And I could see
Yeah.
that they were trying to put me out. And so the day that they told me was October 22nd, the day that they told me that they were going to release me at the end of the year, I was
Mhm.
like, okay. And they and they said, okay, that's not what we expect. I said, well, what'd you expect? Like, I
Yeah.
already knew, right, that
Yeah.
this was coming. But to your point, I wrote an article after I was terminated. I wrote an article called My Freedom Papers. And I talked about the whole fact that I lost my job. I didn't lose my identity. I
That.
believe that is so critical to
Yes.
being able to move forward. It is so critical to being able to make the pivot
Mhm.
and the shift, to
Mhm.
understand that all they took from you was that job. They did not take your identity. They did not take your skills. They did not take your knowledge. They didn't take any of those things. They
Yeah.
took a job title, right? And a place that you went to Monday
Yep.
through Friday or whatever time of the week. And that's what you have lost. You didn't lose your identity. So I think that that was so I love that you got that, because so many of us have to get that. We're so tied.
Yeah.
And it's because we work so hard, and we have to work so hard, and we
Yes.
always have to be doing the most, as they say. And so we get so tied into the fact that, as a lawyer, yesterday I celebrated 30 years since I was sworn into the Florida bar, which is just crazy to even think. And when I was practicing law, and people would say, well, what do you do? And I said, I work, just like you were saying, oh, I work in a, I was part of the team. So I said, I work in a law firm. I never wanted to be tied to that identity. And I always said that being a lawyer is what I did for a living. It's not who I am as a person.
Mhm.
And I think if we can really lean into that and understand what you were just talking about in terms of, like, what is your purpose? Like, lean into that purpose. And no matter how many jobs people take away, that purpose, the person who you are, the thing that you're put on this earth for, the calling that you
Yeah.
have, will never leave. The skills that you have learned, all the things that you were doing to make people money, you can still go make money. Right.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's a great transition point for us to think about for you, right? You said, listen, not only did I see it coming, I was internally planning for the transition to try to stay in that role.
Mhm.
However, it's like every time that you were planning something, right? They would pull that away. They would pull that away. They would pull that away, to the point that there was nothing, right? There
Yeah.
was nothing left. And so you had a decision to make. And so
Yeah.
when they said, listen, you got to go, and there's nothing here for you, you
Mhm.
said, great. I'm not going to sit here and just act as if, I can't make money, or this is the only way that I am going to be somebody in the world. So what did you do next?
Yeah. So the next thing I did was immediately file my business with the state. That was literally the last day of May. I was let go the 29th. I registered my business on the 30th. Um, so that was the very first thing. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to offer? I just really started thinking through, okay, what are the skills that I have? What are the
Mhm.
things that I was really starting to develop and hone while being employed that I can just do on my own? And so I really built out my offerings for my business. The name I already knew because it's my last name. It's been on my last name. Like, it's just too easy. My husband said, "I only married you for your last name, sir." Like, a name is fire. So I, made sure that there was no trademark on the name, and filed that. Um, Determine what my offerings are. Started putting together like a Canva website, reaching out to all the contacts that I had outside of Chase. I don't want to get nobody in trouble. I did not reach out to
Mhm.
people at Chase. Reached out to my personal contacts and said, "Hey, I was laid off. I'm starting a business. This is the business. Here's a one pager. If you know anyone that in HR or talent development, that's looking for a speaker for their offsite, or, a workshop, or you have a team and you're looking just do like, some team building stuff,
Mhm.
let me know, reach out to me, send them my way. So that was the plan. And that's what I did for till now. That's what I've been doing. Like, you got to sell yourself.
Right.
I really also started getting very, very visible as much as I
Mhm.
could on LinkedIn, because that's where my clients would reside. Um, I, built an Instagram. I just started a YouTube. So I'm like thinking of all the different ways
Yeah.
that I can get my message and my thought leadership out there about what I think it takes to be a successful leader. Whether you're in corporate America, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work at Starbucks, I don't
Yep.
care where you work, you are a leader, you should be winning. And what
Mhm.
does that look like?
Yeah.
So yeah, those were the next steps for me. And, it looks different for everybody, but
Yes.
I think really getting your brand established is really what the next step should be.
And I
And
actually, yeah, and
yeah,
I want to break that down because you went through some very specific steps, and I don't
yeah,
want people to miss it. And
yeah,
that last part that you just said, the brand, this
yeah,
is what saved me. And so the idea that you have to build a brand,
yeah,
I'm telling you all, if you have lost your position, even if you haven't, as like you're going
yes,
into entrepreneurship, you're in corporate, you must have a personal brand. This
yes,
is the thing that pissed them off when I started. And I'm telling you, when I started building my personal brand,
yep,
it pissed them off. I have text messages, I have the messages, right? Where they were like, basically, what are you doing? Right? They don't like that because it allows you to have control over your person. It allows you to have agency
mhm,
over your decisions. And if I had listened to them, then when they let me go, I would have been screwed because I wouldn't have been doing the things to develop my personal brand. So that is very first thing, right? And
mhm,
personal brand is not necessarily your colors. And for the most part, it's not, right? That's a byproduct. The colors, the fonts, those types of things. I always
yes,
tell my clients when I work with them, brilliant women like you, I talk to them about, not branding backwards. You don't brand backwards. People brand backwards, meaning that they go after the colors and the fonts and the logo and the pretty stuff. That's not
yep,
the brand, right? That is an outgrowth of the brand, and your personal brand is really around like who you are, what do you want to do, who do you want to impact, right? So you started thinking about those things. So that's one thing that you said. Number two, you said, listen, I put together something, right? I had an idea and I put together a one sheet.
mhm.
Listen, y'all, it's not hard. Canva, go on Canva and put
Canva is
together,
my
right?
grandchild. Oh,
I'm an AI junkie, right? And so anything you can put together, just like here, this is what I do, who I want to do it for,
yep,
why it's important to me, why you should pay me for it, right? Those those
yep,
are some simple
that's
things,
it. Yes.
right? Simple things that you can do. So you talked about doing that. The next thing that you talked about though, which I think we don't often do. I'm a person who doesn't like to ask for help.
Mm,
And so, and I think a lot of high achieving women and Black women, just because people, have traditionally not liked to help us, we don't ask for help. But you said, I then reached out to former colleagues, not at that place, but right,
my
friends, family members, to just say, hey, this is what I am doing.
mhm,
This is what I am doing. One thing I want to add on to that, and you probably did it, but we didn't. It
mhm.
didn't come out in what you were saying, is to make a very specific ask,
Yeah,
right? Because often we say, "Hey, I'm doing this thing," right, and then we expect them to figure it out. No, I'm doing this thing, and who
yes,
can you introduce me to?
yes,
Who do you know? I need you to help me do this. I need you to share this, right? So, what is the very specific ask
mhm,
beyond that? is the
Mhm.
one thing that I would add on. One of the things that I would add on to what you said, but that's so important that yes, we can. Yes, we have to grieve the moment,
Sure.
right? We have to take those times to kind of figure out what are the feelings that I'm going through, and you have to work through that, and they will come and go.
Mhm.
However, we also have to get another word that you talked about, which is like music to my ears. You talked about him teaching you to be strategic, right? Like starting
Yeah.
to get very strategic. We have to get really strategic and intentional in these moments.
Mhm.
So for all of you who have, who are in this space where you have lost your job, right? You've been laid off, you've been fired, you've been whatever they want to call it, right? You have been displaced. We got to get really strategic now.
Mhm.
In my book, Unapologetic AF, I talk about sit, don't stay. One of my Kellyisms is sit, don't stay. And what that means is that whether it's a great thing or a bad thing, yes, take the time to sit in that, to either enjoy it or to reflect, but we can't stay there. There's no progress in sitting. And
Yes.
so we can't stay in those moments. So I like that you said, listen, I had grieved, and many of the women that will be watching or who have experienced this, maybe they have not had that time to grieve because they didn't see it coming. But
Mhm.
take that time, but do not stay. Do not
Yeah.
wallow
Yeah.
in that. And so,
If I could
yeah,
add something just
yes,
right
go
there.
ahead. Yeah.
Even though I did know early,
Mhm.
I was grieving, but I was still going to work. So I was still having to do all the things, keep working, keep being in the meetings, keep showing up, keep being amazing, like I always am, if I could toot my own horn. Um, and still thinking in the back of my head, I don't know how much longer this is going to last. I am devastated. Like I know that this is going to end soon, and I don't know. I don't know if they're going to try to gaslight me for 6 months. I don't know if they're just going to like throw the hammer down and be like, bye. I didn't know when it was coming, so it was almost. I wasn't anxious, but I was always on edge, right?
Mm.
And so even if you do have the time and you know it's coming, even if maybe you didn't know, but you have a severance period. So you've got 90 days, while you pass off work and get to apply for other things. Whatever that looks like, you still have to do stuff.
Yeah.
So that phrase of sit, don't stay is chef's kiss, because no matter what the situation looks like, you can be in that moment, but you still have to do stuff to move forward. So and I don't want it to feel like grind culture, or like you can't really feel your emotions, because it's not that. You have to
Yeah.
feel your emotions, but you still have to be doing something to move forward.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope everybody gets from at
Yeah.
least this portion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we have to feel what we feel.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons. So my last book that I wrote was called The Art of Strategic Resistance. And one of the things that I did with that book was talk about how we match emotion to strategy. And
Mm,
so the book really shows you, like, if I'm in this type of emotional state, what are some of the strategies that I can employ to still get to the goal? Because
yeah.
as you just said, you're in this process, you see it coming, the writing is on the wall, but I still got to come to work. I still got to do the things. I still got to show up. And and for me, when I was doing it, it's like, okay, I see the writing on the wall. I'm a trial lawyer, so I have, responsibility for,
Mm,
all these clients, right? So it's not just me. So I have all these clients, same with you, right? You have this data and all these people that are in your team that you have to work
yes.
with, right? So you have that. And now I have to go home at night and I have to be building, right? I have to be building this business. It is a feat of no mean order.
Mm,
But as I say in the book, as I say in The Art of Strategic Resistance, we are built like our ancestors, right? We are built like our ancestors. And so, therefore, we can do it.
we
We
can.
can do it. And we need to look for community. And that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this, so that we can share our stories, that people can hear and see that you're not alone, because so many of
Yeah.
us feel like we are alone. And so, Michaun, I want us to move forward. I want us to think about, okay, now what's next? So what's next for Michaun? Like, yes, that happened. I
Yeah.
see it. It's part of the story. It is part of the greatness, right? And I will be able to share this now because you're going into entrepreneurship. You've decided to
Yeah.
shift into entrepreneurship. What does that look like for you?
This is a really weird space for me because so my husband is an entrepreneur. He's had his business for 30 something years.
Oh wow.
And so his idea of what it takes to be an entrepreneur is very different than the actual world right now because he did it before social media and before podcasts and before like he just did it from scratch.
Mhm.
And so part of my entrepreneurial journey is finding resources, meeting as many people as possible and finding resources.
Yeah.
So one of the first things I did was, like I said, I reached out to my network. And then out of that, a couple of those people said, hey, well, everybody responded, which is amazing because, not everybody always responds to the email.
Right.
But a couple of them said, hey, have you, Franklin County does this series for small business owners. Have you heard about that? Nope. Haven't heard about anything because I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what I'm doing. So that was great. So I got plugged in with that, started going. Well, I've gone to 2. I need to go to more, but it's just a room of entrepreneurs and it is hosted by the Franklin County Office of DEI. So there's usually diverse business owners in the room. They have, vendor tables with different banks, different, other smaller businesses that fund or provide resources to small businesses. They bring up people up on the stage and say, hey, I run, the Women's Small Business Incubator. I run the ECDI, whatever the businesses are. And they're like, hey, reach out to me on LinkedIn. So I got a lot of contacts from that, just people that I could reach out to with questions, reach out to, hey, I saw you on the stage. What do you all offer? Okay, I could plug into that. And from those types of connections, I was able to get my business plan done in a couple of weeks. I was able to, and that's a thing in of us. So that document is like 20 pages long.
Yeah.
And there was so much stuff. I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't know I should do that. Oh, I didn't think about that. But it was great because it walked you through it and through the process of this online modules, these online modules, you're actually completing your business plan. So at the end, you've got a document. So things like that, it's part of the entrepreneurship journey. But I think the hardest part is I don't know what I'm doing. So, and that's very difficult because
we're used to knowing what we're doing.
girl,
We come from knowing.
I'm
We
so
come
used
from the
to
knowing.
being the person that people come to.
That's right.
I'm the subject matter expert. I'm
That's
the
right.
one teaching the trainings. I'm the one upskilling, people. So for me, this is very different.
And new. And I don't want us to just move past that point lightly because that's important because we we come from spaces where we are the people that people come to.
Yes.
That has been that's the life of a Black woman to begin with, right? No matter what it is.
Yes.
And then we come into this space of our profession. And and so now we come into, I call it the wild, wild world of entrepreneurship. That's the WWE over here. And it's different.
Yes.
And with this whole social media thing, if you're not a person, like I was practicing law, I wasn't on social media.
Yeah.
I wasn't posting, I wasn't doing anything. I'm like, I don't even know what all this is. But you will come into this space and learn so much about who you are if you decide to pivot. So not everyone who's going to come on here will be pivoting, but if you decide to pivot, you are going to learn so much about who you are and your ability. The things that I can do now that I did not know in 2019
Yeah.
right? I build websites, I build landing pages, I create music, like funnels. What was a funnel? I don't know. So you're gonna learn so much about yourself. Here's what I want to do. I want to though talk about what is Born to Win coaching? What are you doing? And who are you doing it for? So that people know and that more people can become those people who, help you with finding expertise, resources, relationships, clients. Let's talk specifically about what you're going to be doing for going forward in your company
Cool.
and how people can support you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're
Um,
welcome.
so Born2Win Coaching's goal is to help organizations to mitigate their legal and reputational risk. And we do that through coaching their executives into more inclusive, culturally intelligent executives. So that's the pitch, right? Like that's the landing of what the business is here for. It's a leadership development practice. We do that through executive one-on-one coaching and through workshops, inclusive sessions, trainings, whatever you want to call them in your company. But we do that through those two different avenues. We're either doing a workshop for a large group of people or maybe even a small team, but generally workshops are larger, or we're doing one-on-one executive coaching. So right now, what I've parsed out as my client are executives that have been in corporate America or nonprofit spaces or any business for that matter, that are established leaders that are having difficulty navigating across difference or leading across difference. And across difference means, the workplace is getting more diverse, right? So the workplace is multi generational at this point, right? You've got people in the workforce that are in their 20s, and you've got people in the workforce that are in their 60s and 70s. There's like 6 generations now. So those leaders that are having difficulty leading these different diverse people, that's the person that I'm looking for. That's the person that I want to reach, whether it is with executive coaching or maybe they realize it and they're like, you know what, I want me and all of my leadership team to go through a workshop or a training. The buyer, though, is not usually that leader, because while the leader gets that feedback, they may not know where to go. They don't know, oh, Michaun does this, so let me call Michaun and have her come over here and
Right.
give me some one-on-one coaching or come and do a training. It's the HR executive and the legal team. They're the ones that are going to know. And like I said, when I first said what my landing is, I'm helping them to mitigate risk. So before the issues become issues, let's get the training in. And this is not just, soft skills and like everything's frou-frou and la-la. And, we're talking about diversity and equity and inclusion. We're not. We're talking about what it takes to be a good leader, what it takes to understand the people that work for you, what it takes to communicate with people that are not like you, what it takes to understand the data that you're looking at when it comes to your employee relations data, your retention and attrition data, your diversity numbers. Like a lot of leaders, and I won't generalize that way, but I'll say I understand that leaders have a lot to do. And they do not always take the time to actually get a huge data set and dig into their numbers and understand what's actually happening. I had to learn how to do that. And that's what I had been doing for 3 years. And that's not a whole lot of time, but it's enough time to understand how to extrapolate data and insights from data.
Yeah.
And so I help leaders do that as well. So leaders are going to have to trust me, and they do. They trust me to come into their company, to come into their business, to come into their nonprofit, receive a data dump of relevant information, and I go through that and I figure out where they're deficient, right? Where there's some problem areas, where I could see a problem coming in the future. And then I take one of my exercises or one of my workshops and we work through that to help them think. A lot of the work is really about self-reflection, helping you understand where you are and then where you're trying to get to, and help you figure out why you're not getting there yet. What is your problem? What are you doing that's holding you back? What are the beliefs that you hold that are keeping you from getting to that goal that you say that you want? What are the limiting beliefs that you have that are hindering you from getting to where you want? Or maybe you are, maybe you are a diverse leader, whatever way diverse it means to you. And you are the person that's trying to advocate for everybody and be the inclusive leader, but nobody's getting it. People are not buying in. Maybe your leadership teams that are your peers, they're not buying in. Maybe you have leaders under you that aren't quite at the level you need them to be when it comes to those soft skills, but you need them and you want them. So you bring me in for executive coaching for them. So it's a myriad of different ways. But that's what the business is. And what I need.
Let me stop before you go to what you need. I want to just circle back so that people, to get a little bit of clarity for people. So one of the things that you talked about is when you said the buyer, which I love that you say that, because I always teach buying versus consuming audience, right? There's the consuming audience, who's the person who's, problems we're solving, right? The individual person. It could be an individual, when I say individual, it could also be a team. But there's also that buying audience. So when you're talking about buying, and the decision makers for you that you are seeking out, what I heard was chief legal officers.
Yes.
Right. Might be a chief financial officer, definitely CEOs, but even coming down into like VPs of HR, those types of people are your decision making audiences that you need people to. If you know these people or you are these people, Michaun needs to talk to you. And when you say mitigating risk, I'm all about that because I was an employment lawyer for a company. So, I'm all about mitigating risk. So so when she talks about the people who either you are that person or that person, if you could support her in making some of those introductions, that's who she's talking about in terms of decision makers for her organization. Okay.
Exactly.
Now to the next part, you were saying, like, what do you need?
That's what I need.
Okay.
I need to be connected with the decision makers, because what I'm finding is LinkedIn is a fantastic platform. And just to plug somebody who did not ask me to plug him, I don't even know this man personally, but there's somebody that's actually building another platform called Hire, Hiyer, that I'm thinking about shuttling over there. So if you haven't heard about that, look it up because it seems amazing. But anyway, LinkedIn is great. However, my buyer is not active on LinkedIn. My buyer might come to LinkedIn every once in a while to put a post up because they just went to a summit or a conference, or they had a really great offsite, and they'll do like a one little post. They might scroll for a little bit, but then they're gone. They are not regularly on LinkedIn like the average corporate professional is.
Can I shift your perspective about that?
Oh, please. Yes.
They are there.
They're there.
They are there every single day. They are there. I think this is a misperception about LinkedIn and why people don't like to come on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is not like other platforms where you get the immediate dopamine hit from somebody liking your post, right? And you believe that they're not there. They are there, and they watch and they read, and they will not like and they will not comment. What they will do is when they're ready, they will come in your DMs, they will email you, or they will have somebody do that. So do not take that to mean that they are not there, or when they, you say like they post, every once in a while or whatever, that might be when they actually post something, but they are on there. They are watching, they are reading, and if you don't continue to show up in those spaces, then when they are ready, the thing about corporate buying is that unlike individuals, where individuals will reach out to you, and this is for everybody, not just Michaun, where individuals will reach out to you at any moment, right? Because they want more information, or they're trying to figure out, like, can you send me more? Like, a million questions. the corporate buying cycle is different. So in the
Okay.
corporate buying cycle, they are watching. This is how they vet, right? They watch, they see what's happening. They know what their problem is. They know what they're trying to solve, and they know when they want to solve it.
Okay.
And at the moment that they are ready and they are ready to buy is when they will contact you. They're not going to necessarily contact you in the discovery phase. Some will, but for the most part, by the time that they get to you,
Mhm.
they are in decision making mode. And so if they have contacted you, they've already vetted you. They've already looked at your LinkedIn. They have looked at your website. They have Googled you. They have done all the things. And now it's for you to show up as that person that they have seen and that they've thought that is a person that they want to help solve their problem. And you might be one of several, you might be the only one, but
Mhm.
now this is your time. So
Got
in that moment is they are in a buying mode when they contact you. So I want to shift you out of that because I think a lot of people have that misperception about LinkedIn that they're not on there. They're on there. Believe me, they're on there.
Okay.
So
No,
I
I
just wanted to
see. This is I don't know the things. So this is why I'm glad.
yeah.
This is actually a really good lesson in being transparent.
Mhm.
Because had I not said that, you would never been able to share that with me, and I still would be thinking my buyer is probably not on LinkedIn. So how else can I find them?
That's where they are. Then where else they gonna be? They're not
That's what I
they're
was
not
trying
on
to figure out. Where
Instagram,
else are they? I know they ain't on Instagram. They ain't
right?
there.
But that's where they are. So
Okay. Okay.
either they're on there or the people who are the who will be the champion for you.
Got it.
So a lot of times when this went a little bit, this is good, and we
No, this
went
is
longer than
good.
we're supposed to, but this is, hey, this is what happens. So when you're having a sales conversation or discovery call with a corporation, sometimes you're having a conversation with a person who has to then champion you, right? It may
Yeah.
not be the actual decision maker, or they may be one of several.
Mhm.
And so what you have to do then is to be in that conversation in a way that you are very clear. And that's why in these conversations, I want to have these questions, these discussions around where are you going? Like, who are
Mhm.
you going after? And what do you want to do? So that you're very clear and you get the practice of being very clear about
Yeah.
what's next, right? Because sometimes even when you're saying like I've called my network, well, we have to get our network to be champions for us. And
Yeah.
so how do I get very clear about what it is that I'm doing, that I want to do, who I want to do it for,
Yeah.
so that I can have that person be a champion for me? And
Yeah.
so sometimes it's the champions that are on there. And so you may be thinking chief legal officer, but to get to chief legal officer, there's somebody who works for chief legal officer whose
Yeah.
role it is to be out there seeing what's out there and vetting so that they can come back to chief legal officer.
Got
So
it.
we ought to like expand our thought process around that.
That's good. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
my mini session.
You're right. Your mini strategic advisory.
Exactly. But no, that's really what I'm looking for. So if you are watching this, listening, and you think Michaun sounds amazing and dynamic,
And she is.
and I am, and you need, or you know, a leader, or you work for a company that is looking for someone to come to the next offsite or speak at an event, or even like you've been looking for a company to do your executive coaching, holla at your
There
girl.
she is.
I'm
There
here.
she is. So
I'm
how
here.
do they get in contact with you? If they're like, yes, yes, and
Yes.
where do they get in contact with you?
So you can connect with me, of course, via LinkedIn. You can connect with me on but through my page, Michan Winborn, and just message me there. Or you can head to my website and click on discovery call and schedule time. The website is https:// born to
No, we ain't doing all that. What is it? Winborn Coach. What is it? Born2Win Coaching.com.
born2win.co.
Go.
Born
Okay.
to the number win.co.
So we're gonna get real clear. One place. Where is the one place you want them to go?
Great question. The one place I would tell them to go is to my website,
Okay.
born2win.co. And that's born2 with the number 2win.co, not .com. That would be the one
Okay,
place.
so we'll put it in here. I'm going to put it in the, so you can reach Michaun. I'm going to put it in the comments. So when anybody comes on here, so it is www.born, the number 2win.co, co.com. Okay.
Correct.
So that's how you can get in contact with Michaun. Michaun, this was awesome.
This was a good time. I appreciate you. I really do.
This is awesome. And I hope that we have supported, helped somebody. I know on Instagram, we had people over on Instagram. So I just want to shout out the people on Instagram who joined us. D Collects Cash was on, Piecing Media Group was on, Eric F. King was on, Deborah Mitchell Media Associates was on. Let's see. A-List Celebrity Services LLC was on. Brakeen 71 was on and maybe still on Instagram. And we had some people join us on LinkedIn. There's probably some people over on Facebook. Listen, y'all, I am so excited about this series, and we're going to continue to have this conversation. And you know, what my mission in all of the work that I do is to amplify, affirm, and elevate the voices of women so that our value is not erased. This is central and integral part of what I do in my business as I work with women experts to help them to position, package, and price their expertise. This is so vitally important. And so one of the things I want to do is to invite you. November 3rd through the 5th, I am hosting a virtual event called Positioned for Profit. Positioned for Profit is an AI powered intensive for what I call expertpreneurs. And so we talked about this whole idea of branding yourself. The first part of being able to make these shifts into corporate spaces or in entrepreneurship, it doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter where you are, is what we call positioning. And that is my wheelhouse, is around helping women to become very powerfully positioned in whatever space. And so one of the things we're going to be doing is working through that. So we're going to work on mindset, messaging, and money in our 3-day launch. Our sponsors, Go High Level, Verizon Business, they're having people come and teach in the virtual at the virtual event Position for Profit. So this is going to be a big thing. It's going to be a big deal, and it's part of our road to the 6th. So you all have heard me talk about for months the Speaking Industry Expo, aka the 6th. We have moved that to March of 2026, but we didn't want to give up the momentum and the dates. And so November 3rd through 5th, we'll have a virtual experience. So you can go to positionedforprofit.com. And I guess we must be alike because mine is positioned, the number 4, profit.com, and you can go and register. So I would love to see you. I would love to see you all there. This is the work that we have to do. We have to continually move forward. We have to be strategic and intentional. Those of you who have been displaced, those of you who've been laid off, those of you who've been fired, listen, I've been there. I understand. And this is one of the reasons that when I was talking to Michaun and this idea came, I was like, we got to do it, and I got to do it right now. And so here we are. If you know somebody or you are someone who wants to be on with us on Beyond the Layoff, Black Women Rising, then let me know. We already have some other interviews lined up, so they'll be coming out. You'll see those. Some will be pre-recorded, some will be live, but all of them will be dynamic and amazing because we have all of these Black women who are rising on the horizon, whether they're going back into the corporate space or they're going to go out and experience this wild, wild world of entrepreneurship. So thank you all for joining us today for our first episode. Michaun, thank you so much for saying yes when I said, hey, would you be my first guest? And, let's support each other. Let's not just say that we are our sister's keeper. I believe that I am my sister's keeper, and this is my way of ensuring that I do my part. So for you all, please share this if you know anyone one person, three people. Just share this out so that people know. And yes, it's about Black women, and yes, it's about Black women rising, but it's about anyone who has lost their role. Like, help them, right? Help them help themselves by sharing these types of conversations with them. And until next time, anything else you want to say, Michaun, before we go?
I will just say that I am born to win, and so are you.
Absolutely. Yes, 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 and yes. So until next time, y'all, take care.